All right, hello everybody, and welcome back. Today we have a fabulous guest, Penney Megginson, and she is a neurostrategist. Welcome, Penny.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Let's get started right away. Please explain this term that I've heard for the first time, what a neurostrategist is.
So I created a method using different strategies and techniques that work on our neurology to overcome traumas, to help us deal with coping with inflammation, chronic pain, chronic illness. And originally I'm a physical therapist, and so I figured out that a lot of the illnesses that we have and the symptoms that we have get exacerbated when we have either normal stresses that we all go through, but compounded like one thing after another, and we're not coping with that level of stress, or that something major has happened. And that major thing could be death of a loved one, it could be divorce, but it could also be loss of a job, or just a very toxic situation at work, that sort of thing, or just a bad relationship that's very toxic. So if you're not coping with that daily level of stress and anxiety that it's causing, it ends up exacerbating other symptoms in the body. And so I use different neurological strategies for coping with that, so that you're not triggered by these other situations that are around you. So you're better able to deal with chronic illness and pain and things like that.
How did you find your way into that field, coming from the physical therapeutic standpoint?
Well, it's interesting because I think I've always had this real need to make people better. Like, that was my connection. That's why I wanted to be a physical therapist. I think I'd always known since I was 12 that I wanted to help people. I wanted to get people better. And I sort of wanted to push the bar of that. I remember early on seeing a show about someone who thought he'd never walk again, and a physical therapist taught him to walk, and just feeling like, oh, I want to do that for people. I want to, show them that they can do something that they thought was impossible. And I think that was always ingrained in me. And so I went to physical therapy school and started working as a therapist. And what I always found interesting was you would have these patients that never got better, and they would see numerous different physical therapists, and they were sort of in the system for years and years, and they just never seemed to get better. And as I would have conversations with them, you'd realize how much other stuff is going on in their life that nobody ever asks about, because it's not the doctor's job, or it's not the physical therapist's job to ask these questions. And I'm a bit nosy and chatty, and I just talk to people. And so I find out, that maybe they went through a divorce, lost their job, and there was some issue with their child, or all these different things. And when you help them sort of sort out the other stuff that was going on in their life, they actually started feeling better. And I felt like, God, I'm better at this for getting people better than the actual physical therapy. And so I realized that there was just this disconnect, that we just don't ask the right questions, and we just ignore all of that. Or you just send someone to a psychologist, and no disrespect, I think there's obviously a place for that, but there's this whole disconnect where we're dealing with the pain, and then the person's dealing with those issues, but they're not putting the two together or seeing that there's even a link. And then I guess my defining moment, the time that this really came together for me, was, I guess, 10 years ago. I had just had my baby, and just after having my kid and selling my business, I just felt like I'd sort of lost myself. And I wanted a big challenge to just kind of get me back. And so I signed up. I'm in Switzerland, and I signed up to do this crazy ski touring race. And it was beyond anything that I was capable of doing, but I wanted a huge goal just to get fit and have a big goal, and to stay, focused on something else other than being home. And
was that any bit of a pattern in your life that you needed, that really big jolting thing to kind of connect, like where you needed that kind of rush from the challenge?
I guess so. Yeah. And I guess maybe that's what I felt with the connection I had with my patients as well. Like I wanted to get everyone better. I wasn't happy to just see that somebody was discharged and, you know, they didn't get better. It wasn't okay. Like I wanted that challenge. I wanted to be able to help everyone.
You wanted to solve the problems that didn't seem solvable to that point.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
people have put in the work and the effort and the result's still not there, and you want to come up with that result.
Absolutely.
That's great.
And so I think I always had that in me. And so I just felt like I needed a big goal. And so I set this challenge for myself. And I was skiing, I was training, I was doing everything right. I was probably the fittest I felt I'd ever been in my life. And then I fell skiing and I tore my ACL ligament in my knee. And so that was game over. And I thought, how could this be? So I spent 2 weeks just lying on the couch, feeling sorry for myself, just eating chips and ice cream and feeling awful. And it dawned on me, this is what happens with everyone, like all of us. Like you put all your eggs in one basket. You're so focused on a goal, and then it doesn't.
And then there's a leak in that basket.
And you're like, how could this happen to me? I did everything right. It should have worked out for me. And you're pissed. I was so angry. And I sat for 2 weeks just feeling sorry for myself, being depressed. I was angry. And then it just dawned on me, I could sit here forever and just feel sorry for myself, or I could just get up, get stronger, push, and, find that sort of inner strength and get through it. And so I made it my goal to get better and not have surgery and do the race. But what I gained from that was realizing that's where people get stuck.
Yeah.
And most people, it's too difficult to get off the couch and make that progress because you've already failed once. You put all that effort in already and it didn't work out. So why do it again? It's so much easier not to do it again. And so you learn from that and you decide, well, I'm just not going to try. And most people just give up. And it really made me think, this is what I want to do. I want to really help people get to that next level. And so that's what I'm doing.
I went through something equally traumatic and knee as well. But here's what I'm hearing from what you just said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the most valuable part of this whole experience for you is those 2 weeks on the couch.
Absolutely.
Like, that's not you, but you needed to live that. You needed to, in order to empathize with other people, you need to get kind of swallowed up by that, and just really get engulfed in that to understand the magnitude of that level of despair that comes with something so devastating, especially if you have never, like, it's one thing being slowed down and it's another thing being stopped.
Absolutely.
And when you've never been stopped before and you've put all, like your own words, put all your eggs in one basket, and now all of a sudden you're just stopped, that's devastating. No matter, and you don't know that devastation unless you live it, right?
I really think that for most people, it's that failure, the big failure.
It's not a failure. It's an accident. It's not failure.
I know, but it's that not.
It's how you're perceiving it, and because you're in that mode of, self-pity and loathing and all this shit that you're going through. But this is what I mean. You need to that needs to be part of your DNA at that point, so that then you can take that and say, you know what, this is not me. I'm picking myself up off the mat, and now you're gonna, that's gonna be your purpose, right? But you needed to. Those 2 weeks are invaluable, from what I see. And am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that most successful people have one big failure or a thing that they tried to achieve that didn't go the way that they wanted. And that was their moment that pushed them to be who they are now.
Yep.
And I really think it's for those people that are afraid to try because they don't want to fail. They need to really understand that you have to have those moments where things don't go well or really don't, really go the opposite way. For you to learn and grow and become the person that you're going to become. It's so important.
The only way you truly succeed is when you eliminate the fear of failure. Like, you have to be willing to fail. And whether you fail or not, it's irrelevant. You have to be willing to throw it all on the line. That's the only time you really know. I mean, you really know.
It's human nature to want to just stay in your comfort zone, right? So most of us are either afraid of failure or we're afraid of success. And that sounds crazy, but you just want to stay where everything is normal and it's what you're used to. And if you succeed, then that chance of failure is even bigger. So it's easier to just stay where you are in Mediocreville, not trying, not putting yourself out there, because the more you succeed, the lower you have to fall,
It's funny that you picked that metaphor. When I was mid-20s. The first therapist that I saw, like, as you know, they ask you to come in and tell them about yourself, and I did. And this guy was like the ultimate geek. Like, it was, I felt awkward with this guy. Like, even disclosing, like, I got nothing. Like, I can't see how you're going to help me. I'm looking at you, and I'm just like, I'm not feeling it, you know. But there I was, and so he stops me as I'm disclosing one time. He goes, let me ask you a question. What is it you're afraid of? Is it fear of success or fear of failure? And I'm like, I never was asked that question before. I never even gave that a thought, right? So I go, I guess it's obviously fear of failure. And without missing a beat, he just looked at me and goes, why? You're great at it. That was a game changer. You know, when you think about it, because I never thought about it. That's like a really important thing growing up, like to understand that. To comprehend it the way you just explained it, right? If you can't even see it, how are you going to understand it?
Yeah.
And to understand, to lay it on the line, for certain people too, and I think this is from the little bit we've spoken, is your makeup is like, you're all in. You need to know this. You know, this whole guessing is you're going to go for it. You're going to do it, and you're going to set your mind to something, and you're going to see it through. Certain people are made that way, and anything short of that's just not going to be enough.
I think we all have that ability, and most of us just don't realize where we're at right now.
But you said it, most people don't really go there. Most people want to stay in their comfort zone. So
they don't know they are, you know? So a lot of self-awareness, and you think you're really trying, but we've got self-sabotage and procrastination, and most of us have that constant spiral, that vicious cycle of procrastination and self-sabotage to keep us from actually achieving anything, because we're actually afraid that either we're not going to achieve it or we are. And so we just end up doing nothing, just because we're living in fear. It's sort of like the most amazing thing that could ever happen to you is behind this door. But to get to it, you've got to go down this hallway that's really like the scariest thing that's ever going to happen to you. But you've got to get there to get to the most amazing thing that will ever happen to you. And most of us won't go down that hall.
That's right.
Kind of hanging out by the entrance, and we'll talk about doing it, but we'll never actually do it.
Right.
You think of how many people talk about how they want to write a book.
I was just going to say this. I was going to use the exact same metaphor. Yeah.
Once you write it, people are going to judge you. They might not like it. Maybe they're going to love it. Who knows? And so they'll talk about it forever, but they'll never actually do it because of fear.
I have a friend, Danny, who I've had on the show, and he's a brilliant author, and he comes from the roughest. This man wrote a memoir that ends when he's 6 years old. That went from his first recollection of breath to 6, and the amount of trauma that was in that time is unconscionable. Mm-hmm. How this guy's alive. He's one of the most eloquent writers. I mean, and this guy's hardcore. He was a bare knuckle fighter in Philly. I mean, hardcore streets. I mean, the story is absolutely unbelievable. And he's a beautiful, warm soul. You know what I mean? But he said in the conversation we had, he goes, there's two kinds of writers. One who writes and one who talks about writing.
It's interesting that you said that he wrote his memoirs from 0 to 6, because one of the things I do is a tapping technique, and it's based on clearing emotions that are sort of trapped in the body from all the negative stuff that's ever happened to you. And what they say, the research shows that most of our negative thoughts, all of our limiting beliefs, have been from the age of 0 to 6. So it's when we don't even remember this stuff, all these negative comments that your parents didn't even realize they were making, like, oh, you're so stupid because you spilled some milk and you were 3. And all these little messages, they get stored in our brain.
Yes.
And we have this thing called negativity bias, where the brain holds on to negative information, because what we're trying to do is like protect ourselves and stay alive. It's all about survival, right? So you're not so focused on the positive stuff. You need to know about the negative so you can stay away from it. If you imagine growing up in a jungle, you're not worried about how pretty the flowers are. You're going to
that lion up on the hill there. That's it's kind of the priority at the moment.
Yeah, and so that's how our brain is wired. And so every time something negative is said to you or you feel a certain way, the brain is like learning. Okay, I don't want to do this again. And so we form all these fears and these negative
Yep.
beliefs and stuff based on that. And then we become adults with all these issues. Like everybody's got their bag of stuff. We all have a story. And, if you can just clear all of that, then the whole world opens up. But most of us don't. And we're not even aware that we have this.
Yeah, this is what's so magnificent that I get to do this because I could have this conversation with Danny, right? And he's telling me his story, and it's so traumatic. And I have such a regard for where he is in his life and what he's had to overcome and how he's had to kind of break the chain so that, the house that he was actually tortured in, he bought that house and started a family and raised his family in that house. And that was a big, significant thing for him as a man, just to be able to, stop the cycle. Like, that was really significant, Now, with all of that trauma, you're not coming from that. And by the way, you grew up in Delaware, which is like, you guys could have thrown a rock and hit each other. And the stories are so dramatically different on certain levels, but ultimately as fascinating. Like it amazes me that you have this level of empathy to help.
I mean, I tell you, like when I was 12, I had decided that I wanted to teach people to walk who had, who were not able to walk. So I ended up going to University of Miami because they're known for spinal cord research, and that was something that I thought I was passionate about. And so I think I've always had it ingrained in me that I wanted to be that person when someone said, oh, my doctor said I'll never be able to do this again, that I'd be the person and say, okay, we're doing it. That's going to be our goal then. And I think I've always been this way.
So you're an empath,
and
right?
It's not climbing Everest. I'm not doing amazing things.
I think you are doing extremely amazing things.
Well, I think I'm helping other people do amazing things for them because I can see that they have a whole world.
Yeah, well, I'll say it. I'm saying it. That what you're doing is amazing. Yeah, and I think that the humility that comes with that is the most important ingredient. You're not doing it for them. You're giving them the container to accept the challenge and do it themselves. You're providing that opportunity for them to fix themselves. That's really more important than fixing them.
Of course.
Totally.
Yeah. It's the game changer for them. And once you change someone's mindset, if you can help them see the world in a different way, it's like the whole world opens up. They just live their life in a different way. Yeah. And it's so nice to see. And often, I'd say more often than not, it's like they don't even remember how they used to be. And they're just like, oh, I just decided that I was fed up with that and I'm moving forward. I'm like, great. But they don't realize that it took that moment for them to decide, but they had spent their whole lives just doing this vicious cycle of whatever negativity they were stuck in.
Yeah. Penny, let me ask you something. When you learned that the correlation between the emotional breakdown in somebody and the physical, a lot of people are not drawing that correlation. When you drew it, did it look then kind of obvious in retrospect when you saw it?
I think I kept thinking it was obvious and wondering why nobody else thought it was important. But then I think at the time, and this is interesting because I don't know how much other medical professionals now see things this way as well. I think the world has changed maybe, but when I was going to therapy school, we were really taught to sort of see the diagnosis and treat the diagnosis and not get involved in the other stuff. That it was out of our scope of practice, they would call it. So, you're not supposed to ask the person about their divorce and what's going on in their life and to know about that stuff. If you thought they were depressed, then you'd send them to, a psychologist or something like that to treat it or send them back to their doctor. And then, of course, they'd go on antidepressants or something. And I just kept thinking, well, why aren't we talking about this stuff? I'd spent a whole hour with someone, so I knew everything about them.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is important stuff because I feel like this is all triggering, what's going on. They were getting their headaches when they were having fights with the ex-husband and things like that. Like, this is relevant. How are we not making this more of a part of their treatment, dealing with that,
Yeah.
And then it was only when I realized what life coaches were, when that became a thing, and I trained in NLP, that I went, this is it. This is the thing that I think I was always doing, and I didn't realize. I was always trying to change their language to make it positive. If they were like, I can't ever do this, I'll never do that, I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. Give me 6 weeks, we're going to do this. and you start to hear their language change, and eventually over time they're like, yeah, so I'm gonna start running, and when do you think I'm gonna be able to run again, and that sort of thing, instead of going, oh no, my doctor says I'll never run, I'm not running, I'm not a runner, I can't do this, I have an injury. And you'd see that change and the mindset change, and then suddenly they're away and they're like, you know what, I'm thinking I'm gonna sign up for this 10K and I'm gonna do this, and you're like, excellent. And they don't even realize where they came from, where they started out, and that things have changed. They just see reality is where they are now, and that is great, that they're just moving forward. And I think I always sort of felt that there was something missing, and it wasn't until I did the other stuff, the not physical therapy related, that I was like, now I get what I was trying to do there, and I started merging the two. And I do think that healthcare has changed. I do think that there's a lot more, holistic therapists out there that are thinking this way as well, and treating the mind and the body. But
Yeah.
I think important for people to know who are suffering that there is a solution, and that a lot of it is up in your mind and ways of changing how you're thinking and how you're coping with the things that are going on in your life. But simple techniques can help you not get triggered by people that are really toxic around you, or stressful events, or even techniques that get rid of these emotional connections from the past. So many people are stuck in their story, and I find that is one of the biggest limiting things that you find. You can have a trauma, and it can be your success story. You look at people like Tony Robbins, or the person you were talking about, and that can be the thing that makes them conquer the world. Or it can be the thing that makes you never try because you don't have to, because you have your story. And people just live behind their story, and it becomes their comfort zone for never having to do anything else. Do you know what I mean?
I totally do. Yeah.
But I think that sometimes we have to just write the next chapter, or just throw away that book and write a new one. Or figure out that this is your defining moment. This story is what's going to create you and what you're going to do with your life. And sometimes people just hide in their story, and they stay as the victim, and they don't feel that they have the strength to do more with that, or it becomes their excuse. I don't know.
Generally speaking, you're 1,000% correct. I think most people don't want to be leaders. Most people want to be led. And so we buy into this whole medical perspective where we think that, something's ailing us or bothering us. We go to a doctor, we get a pill, and we're on our way again, and it's just that simple. And we don't want to take responsibility for the work. Like, you can go and get the surgery, and if you don't do the rehab, you're not making a full recovery.
Yeah.
You do a, half-assed attempt at the rehab, and then you can't complain about why you don't have your range of motion. It's just simple. It's really simple, but you have to know, like, that has to be ingrained. And I don't think our medical industry, I think they're as guilty as we are. Like, we want the easy way out, and they want to give us the easy way out. It's a mutual agreement here that kind of failed us as a society, I think, in a sense. But then there's people like that are really making a difference, whether it's somebody on a grand scale like Tony Robbins, who everybody can associate an identity with, or it's somebody like yourself, or somebody like my friend Danny, who different stories, but very impactful stories from people that care, people that are contributing on a daily basis. And whether the pomp and circumstance comes with it or not, the truth is there. That's really what matters. At the end of the day, that makes, in my opinion, a greater impact. I don't think I'm, speaking out of school here. I think it's more or less pretty obvious, right? That's what we do. And the fact that you're doing it, and coming from the States, right? And then you're in Geneva, Switzerland now.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Switzerland?
I've been in Switzerland about 12 years now.
Yeah. Was that not a big cultural change? Like, did you not think that you're leaving this market where you're going to have this opportunity to get your message out? I mean, 12 years ago when you made the move, was social media where it is now?
No, definitely not.
Okay, so that's a pretty courageous move you're making there, to go to what is, in a sense, more of an isolated area and maybe less accessible for the people to get your message. Or am I wrong?
Well, interestingly, I think going to Switzerland. In Switzerland, healthcare seems to be more accessible. It is a smaller country, so I think that helps. But and there's a lot more of a financial sort of I don't know the word for it, but the healthcare is just very, very good here.
Is that socialized medicine?
No, it's not in Switzerland actually, but interesting question. No, and insurance is expensive, but everybody, the cost of living is quite high here, and what the minimum wage is quite high. So everyone sort of makes, where I guess in the U.S. There's a huge gap, between the people that can't afford to pay their rent, let alone for health insurance. I don't think you have the same level of that at all in Switzerland, or in any part of Europe, really, compared to the U.S.
Yeah.
And so I find what's amazing with Facebook and social media is being able to reach these people who have no good doctor in their area or no.
Right, but when you made the move, it wasn't that accessible.
No, it's not.
So I'm talking about making the move.
Yeah.
That's a big step, right?
But I think that probably helped me in seeing how much I wanted to help people who were in areas where they didn't have excellent healthcare. Because when you can compare the two, for instance, when I had both of my children, I spent a week in hospital. It was like being in a hotel. It was amazing food, amazing nurses constantly around, like just amazing care. And I just can't imagine not having that.
I know.
I don't think you have that anywhere else. I mean, even if you're in the UK, I think you're out the same day or the day after.
Right.
And I'm not sure what you get even with really good private health insurance in the US.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
So when you come into a system that is so good, you just feel like, well, everybody deserves this. Like we should all, there should be no excuse for a country as big as America, as powerful as America, to have so many people suffering.
I'm with you on that.
Chronic illness. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I'm with you.
It has made me even stronger in this fight to help people that are suffering every day with chronic pain and chronic illness, autoimmune disease, and this is all on the rise, and we're sort of not doing enough about it in America. And so much of this is not accessible to the people that are really suffering because they can't afford the health insurance, or because they live in places where they're so far from a hospital that has specialists for what they need. And that's where social media is amazing. And so a lot of the techniques I use are things that people can just do anywhere at home. And, it's sort of breathing techniques and neurological things, visualization and that sort of thing. And so it doesn't cost them anything, and it just helps them cope with their symptoms and that sort of thing. And so I think it's unthinkable that there are so many people suffering around the world and they can't afford to do anything about it.
Which is, it's really about the compassion that you have. It's so beautiful to just, absorb it, because it's amazing. I'm doing this story, a documentary on this EDS, right? Which is, it's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And it came to me through Tao, who's the yoga teacher, right? And somebody in Russia happened to be in one of the groups, the yoga groups, and Tao is her hero. So then I learned about this condition her daughter has. I actually was in this conversation with somebody, and I can't believe that I'm in this conversation. And they're like, why are you so interested in this Russian girl? Like, there's so many people over here. I'm going, what difference does it make? Like something hits you and strikes you, and you respond. And when you see what somebody has to deal with, and she's from Russia, and they don't even know how to deal with this syndrome over there. They have no, she can't get treated. She has to go to Germany to get treated. And now, because, again, if she was German, this would be great. But you got to raise a lot of money for each procedure, because you got to pay now. It's because you're not a German citizen, right? And it really throws a loop into the whole spectrum of things. And in the States, it's not a recognized thing. Globally, people are just beginning, to even know what this is. And there's people really dealing with this. And I listen to, and I love Tao to death, but she's telling me, well, just tell her to do this and do that. I'm going like, you don't understand. This is way deeper and more complicated than that. She doesn't have what's in her body that everyone else has. And when you come across people that have been literally able to will themselves through real heavy duty stuff, you know, it's absolutely amazing to see. But some people just, you know, the condition is more complex than just that. There's more involved than just will. Without the doctors, all the will in the world, you know, you need a team effort here with this, right?
Yeah.
And it's really complex. People have to step up and just have compassion for another human being. Forget, you know, the circumstances. It doesn't matter globally, you know, it doesn't matter racially, and nothing matters. Just like, because I'm talking now, I'm really engrossed in this scenario. And the other family I'm featuring is from right by you in Maryland, right? Mm-hmm. And again, wonderful. I'm so honored and blessed to be able to be in these worlds and be, you know, allowed into their worlds and understand what they're dealing with every day, and to see the cohesiveness of the family. And I was just thinking, I was talking to the husband and wife of the family. I'm thinking, like, this is a beautiful thing to see you guys working together. You know,
absolutely.
It's so, but what about that little kid that doesn't have parents? Like, and we're like, our culture's now getting to the point where it's like, fuck them. I don't even know who that little kid is. You know, and how rude, because it's a little kid. It's a little kid. And that's my only point. It's like, where is the compassion for just like saying that everybody should have the right to just be taken care of, just be acknowledged? Just be like, have these things addressed. I mean, well, I'm not out of my pocket. Like, you know, you figure that out. I don't want to lose my health care. And I'm not, you know, like, why isn't there a solution? Why aren't people more focused on the solution? You are.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think I told you about my daughter and how she sort of wants to change the world. But,
I love this one.
Yeah, so she once said to me, like, at what age did we stop caring? Or
right.
When did we stop caring? And finally, I got frustrated by this, and I said, you know, I don't know. What do you think? At age 7, I said, what do you think? What age do you think we stop caring? And she said, I think it's when we start caring about money. So when we have to make money, then we stop caring about other things, because we can only care about so many things. And so we start to care about making money and having a house and, you know, having kids and a family, and we stop caring about other people and caring about what's right. And I guess there's some truth in that. And
there's a lot of truth in that.
We've got our humanity, and then we have our sort of goals and aspirations for our own life, and somehow trying to balance the two.
That's the answer.
Focused on ourselves and you know, our family and protecting our family unit and making the money and saving it and putting it into our children's future and that sort of thing. And it's too much to think about everybody else. And especially when the problem becomes so big, then it just becomes somebody else's problem. You know, it's like, it would be fine. I think it was in The Tipping Point. I read this years ago, where they talked about how they did a study, I think it was in New York, where they did different scenarios, like a woman, an old lady having her purse stolen or something. And they worked out that as long as there was one other person, that both people wouldn't react. They wouldn't do anything. But if you looked around and you saw you were the only person, then you would get involved and you'd help the old lady or whatever scenario they had created. Yeah. See how human nature reacts to different things that they see. And so as long as you saw that there was one other person, you would do nothing. And the other person would see you, so they would do nothing, so nobody would do anything. And I think that that's partly human nature too. We want it to just be somebody else's problem. It's too big a problem. Homelessness, the healthcare issue, you know, as long as it's not affecting you, then it's somebody else's problem. And it only affects you when it actually affects. And then it becomes a problem because it's your problem. And unfortunately, I guess that's a part of human nature. And so you need to find a way to get back to being human.
I don't know. I think the fact that it's become like acceptable to be colder is not. I mean, it's not cool. It's just not. But there are enough people, like, out of the darkest dark comes this really bright light, you know. And like we said, most people don't want to go down that dark tunnel, but for those who are just chasing that light, there are a lot of people like yourself, just not enough, like that really care and really just want to be on the right side of the issue. I wanted to ask you about going back to where we kind of started in this conversation, and you talked about those 2 weeks on the couch and all the emotion that came with that. And I was kind of in my head drawing the correlation with grief, and grieving. And
Absolutely.
yeah, often we don't really do that properly either. We're not taught how to grieve, really, when you think about it, until it's after the fact. But it's a really important process, which the fact that you went through those 2 weeks gives you, an insight into it, whereas you're not just saying, suck it up and move forward and miss that opportunity to really get that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's one of the main issues with trauma. I think I needed to have that time. Does that make sense? Like I needed to have that time to feel sorry for myself or, be angry. I needed the time to be angry. I couldn't have just, the next day said, you know what, this is fine. I'm going to focus on something else. You need that time to be upset. And however long, maybe it could have taken for somebody else longer. Maybe it could have taken a whole year. You think of some of these athletes have an injury and they have a whole season that they're really angry and pissed off. And it takes a lot of that anger to kind of get back to the game. And I think it's important. And with grief, what you were saying, it's so important to grieve, to let yourself go through that process. And I think what most of us do after a divorce or something like that is you're so afraid of sitting and feeling sad that you're out, you're partying, you're in the next relationship as quick as you can just to avoid feeling sad. And what you need to do is give yourself that time to feel bad. And, you've just been through something horrible and let it be. And just let yourself go through that process, no matter how painful that is, so that you can pick yourself up and be ready to move on. And maybe that's why people end up making the same mistake over and over again. You see people after a bad relationship end up in the exact same relationship, just different guy.
Yep.
And maybe if you took the time to feel really bad and to feel really sad and to analyze where did I go wrong? How did I end up here? So that you could learn from that and move forward rather than just quickly jumping into something to not feel sad. And so grief, I think, is a major part of the process and acceptance. And most of us don't allow that to happen because of fear of just feeling bad. We just want to fill it with something else.
Would you say that 2 week period was the catalyst in you drawing the true significance of the correlation between the emotional and the physical there, which becomes your message now as you combine those two and become the neurostrategist that you are? That is where it all began.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that when you're going through that difficult period, that it's necessary and it's important to go through that. And we were talking about grief. Like, I think allowing yourself to grieve during that period and just feel bad so that you can learn from that experience and not just jump into the next thing to avoid actually going through the experience so that you can learn. And I think that's what happens often in relationships when you have a bad breakup. Instead of having that time to learn about yourself and figure out what mistakes you made and why you ended up here in the first place, we just jump into the next thing. And so we end up constantly going into one bad relationship into another. I mean, how many people can identify with that? Where if you just allowed yourself to be on your own and to feel lonely and to feel sad and to feel bad, then you'd actually learn and grow from that period. And that would be your defining moment. You'd end up finding the perfect person because you worked on yourself, but you also figured out what you wanted and what you didn't want and all of that. And I think so many of us are afraid of that feeling bad period that we jump into something else. We try and, a lot of people go to alcohol or drugs or other things because, we just want to nurture that wound rather than trying to, understand it and feel it and grieve and then learn. and move on, you know?
I think you're proof of how prolific an experience that can be. You've defined your life since then by those, that has been the catalyst,
Yeah.
those 2 weeks
Yeah.
to what was to follow.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't address it, you miss it, then everything else is different.
You just keep reliving the same negative story if you don't learn from it so you can change it, you know, and change your story. And
Do
so,
you think that your purpose, it has like a mantra attached to it based on that experience?
yeah, I think so. I think I've always had this thing about negativity where I just sort of wanted. I had friends that used to say I like had these rose-colored glasses, and that's how I saw the world. And it was when I was sitting on that couch that I felt like, where are those rose-colored glasses?
Yeah,
Why am
I
I so
need you right now.
and now I'm just like I want to show everybody that there is a negative side and a positive side to everything, and you learn from the negative stuff, and that's actually the better stuff because that's the stuff that teaches you and builds you into the person that you are. The positive stuff is just nice, and so you can focus on that, but learn from that negative stuff, embrace it. Don't be upset by it, and don't be afraid of it. And it's the building stuff, and the positive stuff's just the nice, happy stuff. And so if you see it that way, then there's really nothing bad. There's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, we should want some of these negative things because it kind of builds you into a better person if you can learn from them, and be brave enough to go through it. And yeah, I guess I feel like that's my message, or I feel like that's what I want to help people to learn and do.
I do know. That's why we're having this conversation, because I'm fascinated with you and what you do and the way you do it. I mean, I believe wholeheartedly the message is so important, right? But I believe as wholeheartedly that the delivery of the message is what actually gets people to get the message.
You have to connect with people to.
Yeah, you have that gift of being able to do that. It's really great. Yeah. And I think people need, it's a simple message, but the willingness to look at, again, you could very easily have made numerous excuses to not delve into that, and just come out of it and be very content and, any way you wanted to come out of it,
Yeah.
But the fact that you went at it raw and took on the challenge as it came to you, I could do nothing but commend you for that. I mean, I think it's great. And people should hear that, your story. It's profound.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So what do you do moving forward from here? How do people find you and work with you?
My method's called Megginson Method. So it's my surname, Megginson. So Megginson Method, and I'm on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'm Penny Megginson on LinkedIn. And so they can get in touch with me directly. I have a host of videos. I do a lot of webinars as well, and I work one-on-one with people. I work online, so I work with people all over the world. And so most of my clients are outside of Switzerland, actually.
Yeah.
I do see people here as well. But what I'm now also doing is running trainings for physical therapists and osteopaths, personal trainers, that sort of thing, so that they can use these techniques to also help
Beautiful.
their clients. And so that's kind of another passion for me. And so whether someone is a healthcare practitioner or whether they're someone who's suffering from chronic pain or chronic illness, I'd love to hear from them. So,
yeah. Penny Megginson, look for her. And if you have any kind of issues at all that you feel she can help you with, she is the one. You're going to be as big as Roger Federer, as the most famous Swiss person. For what is the word? What do you call somebody from Switzerland?
a Swiss person?
A Swiss person.
Yeah.
There you go, a Swiss person. Okay. Yeah. Who, by the way, you have that kind of elegance that this guy is just what a class human being, huh? As an athlete.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
A real hero here.
Yeah. Now I have two people I'm a fan of in Switzerland. You Swiss people.
I don't think you can put me in the same boat with him.
Yeah, I'm putting you in the same boat because I believe in that. It's a matter of people getting to hear your story. That's all it is. I mean, you hear other people's story due to the size of their megaphone and how far they can reach. So some people have a larger megaphone than others. But your story is as profound as anyone's. I mean, I just love what you do and how you do it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I thank you for being so gracious and so open with your
Thanks for
story.
the opportunity. No, this is great.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.